Hello all, Jarek Defiler, the patient gamer here to talk about a little old game called Overwatch. I recently got into the Overwatch 2 beta and played a fair amount of matches, so it got me thinking about Overwatch 1 and how it fares in these trying times. So I thought I'd do a little video giving my salty, uneducated, and biased, albeit experienced opinion on the current state of Overwatch. Consider this a rant. Here's the disclaimer. Everything I discuss here is strictly from the perspective of a casual, non-competitive gamer. I play games to have fun, not to be competitive. I could care less about climbing ladders, gaining rank, or becoming the top elite super ultra titanium platinum player of the uranium diamond dark matter supernova uber league or whatever. I just want to have fun and enjoy myself after a hard day's work. As a result, my entire playtime in Overwatch is strictly in quick play classic, arcade, and mystery heroes. Keep that in mind going forward. I'm just a dirty casual. So, when Overwatch first came out back in 2016, it was loads of fun. Everyone was a noob and matches were virtually all balanced around this concept. You had a fairly diverse cast in regard to their abilities and design. You had some easy to play heroes for dirty, useless casuals like me with lock-on abilities or weapons that didn't require much aim, while also having some marksman type heroes that required more skill for the more hardcore players that like more of a challenge. There was something for everyone, and it was fun, because even though you may be out-aimed by some hardcore player, you still had the means in your arsenal to put up a fight. But like everything PvP, as the game moved on past its infancy, the players evolved, which was expected. Those Genji mains realized the absolute powerhouse he was and adapted accordingly. McCree mains exploited his fan the hammer to no end, that was kind of my thing, evaporating tanks in the blink of an eye. Hanzo players discovered they were able to one-shot any non-tank hero with their eyes closed and the game downsized, by just spamming arrows down a corridor or shooting scatter arrow at their feet, which I'm not gonna lie I also dabbled in, and not much has changed there to be honest. A little later on you also had the nightmare for casuals meta of Pharmacy, a frustrating combination of two flying heroes with adequate mobility and tiny hitboxes that were a huge pain in the ass for most of these grotesque casual players that didn't have super great aim. Why have one hero that can fly in a game where only part of the roster can actually mechanically hit them? I have no idea, but it's very much a get good thing in this instance. Either way, the fun casual romp swiftly turned into a scramble for meta heroes so players could have an easier time on top. This mindset infected dirty, stupid casual gamers' quick play and even arcade modes instead of staying where it belonged, in competitive mode. This is where things started to turn south for me and my disgusting casual brothers and sisters. For those who aren't aware, Blizzard has a reputation for being exceptionally incompetent when it comes to balancing PvP in their games. StarCraft 2, in my opinion, is the only game where they keep a somewhat balanced system, but probably only because they just have 3 factions to work with in a 1v1 environment, and it isn't perfect by any means. But when it comes to having multiple classes with multiple players in a match, Blizzard somehow always finds a way to fail in balancing despite all their decades of experience. Overwatch was no different. So as the game trucked on, it became more and more wonky. Heroes got gutted, buffed to Mount Olympus, or were just left in the dust, and each new hero release threw another wrench in the works, with the most egregious being that of Ana. When Ana came out, she was probably my most played hero. I really enjoyed her and still do, because she brings so much to the table and is quite fun to play. However, when she was implemented, the game took a drastic turn, because along with her came one of the most broken abilities in the game, Biotic Grenade. With this ability, as well as her ultimate, Blizzard would have to take Ana into consideration for every single major balance change or new hero added to the roster. At this point, the entire game revolved around Ana's grenade and ultimate, and it's been that way ever since really, because Biotic Grenade is basically the great leveler of Overwatch. It shuts down the filth that is Roadhog, and it keeps your team alive when trapped in Zarya's ult, or wastes the enemy team in your Zarya ult. It helps defend against dive meta and so on and so forth. So getting rid of it apparently isn't an option for Blizzard because it's probably just too much work to revert or balance around all the damage it's done. It's too ingrained in the system. Thus, we have modern day Overwatch. But it doesn't end there, ladies and gents. Ana is just a piece of the puzzle. For the most pronounced design decision that impacted gameplay balance for the masses, again, in my humble, stinking, rotting casual opinion, is that of Blizzard deciding to balance the game around the top 500 players, the elites, the hardest of hardcore, the guys and gals that play this game as a career in order to push their competitive esports scene. This, my friends, is what really degraded the quality of Overwatch from my point of view and pushed away the useless, obsolete casuals like myself. Now, I completely understand the argument as to why you would balance the game around the top players. They know the game in and out, they know every hero's strength and weakness, they know how to exploit every single little thing, they have the best mechanical skills and strategy. I get it. But here's where I have an issue. Overwatch was never really marketed to be a super highly competitive ultra mega esports shooter. I mean, how can you take a game that has a literal aimbot, wallhack, and auto-targeting turrets in it seriously in a competitive environment? They may have had esports in mind from the start, but Overwatch was always presented as a casual FPS for everyone. And as a result, upon release, it garnished a very large player base of naughty, simpleton, mouth-breathing casuals like me. Initially, you had people who were completely new to the FPS genre jumping on board because they liked the pretty colors and flashy outfits, and it was great, because you had many heroes that could cater to that crowd and allow them to actually be useful to the team. Mercy being the biggest example. No aim, just click and hold while floating around. Anyone could pick her up and do well. Same for old school Symmetra, Reinhardt, and Winston among others. And we knew that the vast majority of these players were filthy, dirty casuals because a blue post stated that quickplay was, and still is if I'm not mistaken, the most played mode in the game. Because it turns out that the average player in general isn't that interested in a hyper-competitive environment when it comes to their games, like yours truly. Bad casual, bad! So as the game went on, we saw patch after patch making changes based on a hero's performance in the top ranks. We saw Symmetra lose her lock-on ability, Torb turret get changed, McCree's fan the hammer get nerfed, among other things. Granted, a lot of the changes were fine, some were necessary, scatter arrow, others were head-scratching, but it all showed a shift into turning the game into a competitive shooter based around the skill level of the top 1% of players, thus leaving the rest of us pointless, insignificant, unwanted casuals in the dust, despite us being the majority of players as well as the ones paying all the bills. Because if someone who plays 16 hours a day in a bunker somewhere can one-shot that Pharaoh from 500 meters away or has no problem taking out the elite Genji or Tracer that's dissolving your backline, then why can't you? And thus we have the Overwatch of today. Horrible matchmaking, imbalanced heroes, same heroes seen in every single match in quick play, and the community has turned into a toxic rage fest of hero bashing, insults, and demands for hero switching because you aren't here to have fun, you're here to win. That's all that matters now. Hell, even been guilty of that myself, sadly. Hero balance will always be an issue in Overwatch, and the defense usually brought up for this is that said heroes are trash or godlike simply because they are used or not used in the top 1% competitive play or pro leagues. Casual play simply doesn't matter, but there are still some heroes that are just almost useless at this point in time. I like to test myself and play heroes that are considered weak, so for the last few months I was going heavy into Bastion, and you don't really know hero imbalance until you give that poor dude a dedicated try. Don't get me wrong, I like him, he's fun, but by no means is he as effective as the other DPS. I get bashed more by my teammates when playing him than anything, despite regularly topping damage and eliminations. He is pretty much countered by virtually the entire roster given that he is a sitting duck in turret form. But I like to use him as almost a flanker, constantly moving, very mobile, and it leads to some fun matches, but not always effective unfortunately. Right now, Soldier is the main DPS to go with if you want to just face roll your way to gold medals, and whenever he's in a match, there is almost always a mercy pocket for him just healing and boosting him to high heaven, making him an unstoppable powerhouse that can delete almost any hero in a matter of milliseconds. It's fairly annoying, but whatever. Virtually every match will have a Roadhog and or Hanzo in it, often one on either team, sometimes both. After that, it's almost always an Ana. Personally, I hate Hanzo and Roadhog, absolutely despise them. I think they're the antithesis of fun, poorly designed, and lead to nothing but frustration for the enemy team and oftentimes their allied team as well. Yet they're in literally every single match in quick play because they're just so easy to play and do well with, frankly. It's infuriating. Hanzo doesn't really have many weaknesses. He can one-shot you at range, so you get close only to have him one-shot you while you're in his face. They replace Scatter Arrow with machine gun arrows to make him evaporate tanks as well, so all in all he's just a bundle of complete BS that everyone seems to hate while still defending him because he doesn't really have much play in the higher ranks. Another example of how balancing or judging the game by the top players ruins it for the normies. Way back in the early phase, Hanzo used to be my most played hero. And then I just felt gross playing him because it was just too easy to spam arrows and get one-shots every other notch. So I dropped him years ago and basically never touch him because I feel I'm ruining other people's fun. Same with Roadhog. Roadhog doesn't have any real hard counters outside of snipers, and even they don't really counter him because his head hitbox size is so damn small. And he's much more of a DPS than he is a tank, he just happens to have tank-like health. I would say Sombra is maybe his hardest counter. Sure, Ana gives him a hard time with Nade and Sleep, same with Mei and Reaper, but everyone forgets that he can just hook and one-shot them all like he can nearly everyone else. Just heal through their initial damage, bait their defensive ability, hook, one-shot, done. At least Sombra can shut down his hook and heal. Whenever I had problems with a Reaper on the enemy team, you know who I would switch to? Roadhog, despite everyone claiming that Reaper is his counter. It got to the point of me 1 versus 3 or 1 versus 4 enemies on an objective, easily stalling for my team to revive, and it just felt dirty. So I stopped playing him too because again, if I feel like I'm taking fun away from other people, I drop that hero. Unless it's me. Ana is somewhat of a mixed bag in my opinion, because yeah, she is one of the strongest heroes in the game, almost a must pick if the enemy has Roadhog, but she at least takes some modicum of skill to do well on. Some. And she's also not running around one-shotting everything that moves without having to so much as blink. Her grenade is game-breaking though, unfortunately. Lately when I play support, I try to use Moira and Brigitte more if I want a challenge, Baptiste if I find myself struggling, but none will top Ana. So quick play has become kind of frustrating to play as each match just feels the same. The best times I have recently are the extremely rare matches without a Hanzo, Roadhog, or Ana in them. Playing those feel like the game is completely different. Those matches tend to last longer, are a lot of fun, and the game feels a bit like it did in the good olden days. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying any of these heroes are overpowered, because I don't think there is an overpowered hero in Overwatch. I'm just saying that they ruin the fun in matches for me. Junkrat and Genji too, just so annoying. But thankfully they're not in every single match, and when they are, they're at least manageable. Another issue with Overwatch lately is that of matchmaking. Everyone talks smurfs and hackers, and yes, there are quite a few, I see them regularly in my games. And yes, you can actually hack on projectile heroes like Hanzo and Junkrat. If you don't believe me, go look up hacking videos on YouTube. You can check out some of Sumito's, he has a few on there. They're hilarious, but annoying when you're actually in the game. But just because you see them a bit doesn't make them the norm, so I'm not talking about that here. What I'm talking about is just standard, janky matchmaking. The vast majority of matches tend to be completely one-sided. Either my team completely stomps the enemy or vice versa. Whenever one side begins to lose, they switch to Roadhog and or Ana or Hanzo, and it creates yet another boring same old match. But it's very rare that you get good quality balanced matches anymore. I will go up against people that are obviously leagues ahead of me in terms of skill. McCrees that you would swear are aimbotting, Pharahs that can somehow shoot heat-seeking rockets that never miss, soldiers and widows that melt you before you even realize you're being shot, and it sucks. You'll also have the more rare opposite with people that are new to the game and just getting slaughtered. Why I am being placed against or with these people, I have no idea, but it really ruins the whole fun aspect of the game. Maybe the player pool is so stagnant now that that's what's required to keep queue times low, but given Blizzard's history with matchmaking issues in their games, I doubt it. Even if that was the case, I have no problem with slightly longer queue times if it translates to quality fun matches, but alas, it is not meant to be. So where can the franchise go from here? Sadly, Overwatch 2 will be coming out soon, and after having played the beta, I don't see the game getting that much better, and the fact that Overwatch 2 will be taking Overwatch 1 completely, there really is no point in trying to fix Overwatch 1 at this point as it will be retired. Unfortunate. That said, this is a ranting video of me bitching about the game, so here's what I think. Blizzard sucks now. We've seen it with Diablo 3, the travesty that is Diablo Immortal, the fun Heroes of the Storm that had tons of potential for casual gamers at the start but then became a joke, and we see it with Overwatch. Blizzard is not capable of maintaining good games anymore. I'm sure it has everything to do with their merger with Activision that put the focus on shareholder returns rather than making great games. These big studios don't seem to realize that if you make great games, the financial return will be there in the long run because people will purchase and fund the game. But they rather resort to shady exploitative microtransaction and loot box tactics instead. Oh well, so long as they make their money, am I right? At the end of the day, Blizzard should stick with what they were always good at, creating fun, casual, simple games that didn't take themselves too seriously and that everyone could easily pick up and enjoy. World of Warcraft being the epitome of this. WoW was, probably still is, just a fun, casual romp that anyone could enjoy. I was completely new to the massive multiplayer online genre, and WoW was my first. I wasn't confused, I wasn't set back behind a massive skill wall despite others on my server being way ahead of me. I was able to slowly learn the game, build up my tunes, and have a blast doing so. When Heroes of the Storm first came out, it was the same thing, just a fun, casual MOBA. But then they began pushing competitive and came out with HOTS 2.0 that completely borked the matchmaking to the point of literally every match being a one-sided stomp where the losing team won't even down a single tower. Reasoning? Esports, despite the vast majority of players doing quick match mode and not watching esports. Sound familiar? Players want a game to play, not to watch. There will always be some niche gamers that will like to watch esports, and that's perfectly fine. I enjoy watching some esports myself, but the game itself should be designed around the gamers that actually play it, not around the top 1% players, not around the esports scene. Unless the game was originally designed from the very start to be pushed as an esport game, which I would argue Overwatch wasn't. With Overwatch, Blizzard made the grave mistake many developers do, and that is trying to please everyone all at once. It's impossible. They marketed Overwatch to be a casual hero shooter, and a year or two in completely switched paths and began forcing their Overwatch League and competitive scene onto everyone with all their balance changes. They state that they changed this or that based on Pro League, but then in the patch notes you see them making changes based on a hero's representation in lower ranks. It's baffling and completely unproductive. And I fear the same route is being taken with Overwatch 2, which should really be called Overwatch 2.0 because it's actually just an overglorified patch. Although Overwatch 2 does have some improvements over Overwatch 1, I don't really see it bringing in a whole new audience of casual gamers. Quite frankly, it's probably just going to be a niche crowd of hardcore Overwatch fans that stick around, unfortunately. So Blizzard needs to make up their damn minds. Do they want a competitive shooter focusing on the defunct esports scene, or a casual fun game for the masses? They did it with StarCraft 2. In StarCraft 2, they made an obvious and blatant decision to focus on balancing the game around the esports scene, and not the lower ranks, which is why I stopped playing ladder. But hey, at least I knew what I was playing and where it was going. Plus, I still enjoyed watching StarCraft 2 tournaments back in the day. But with Overwatch, I have zero desire to watch anything on it because it's a visual clusterfuck, and half the time you can't even see what's going on as the point of view constantly bounces from player to player with copious amounts of graphical elements giving you a seizure. It's just not really a good game visually to have as an esport. But whatever, not my problem really. There's plenty of other games to play out there. It's just disappointing because I think Overwatch as a franchise had some pretty good long-term potential back in the day. But recently you don't really hear any hype about Overwatch 2.0 and nobody's talking about it and nobody seems to really care. I'll probably do a video on Overwatch 2.0 giving my thoughts on what I experienced in the beta. It has its ups and downs just like anything else. Sadly this video was on the pessimistic side because Overwatch just doesn't have much going for it anymore. Blizzard has abandoned it and let it die, and I hope they can learn from their mistakes and make Overwatch 2.0 much better. Given what I've played through, it's not looking too great. Maybe a step up from Overwatch 1, but still not great. Either way, I hope others enjoy it at least. Thanks for listening to my salty rant. Be sure to like, share, subscribe if you wish, or dislike if you don't. This has been Jarek Defiler. Have a good morning, afternoon, evening, or night, depending on where you are. I'm out. And Hanzo and Roadhog.